Well, we are at peak season for fresh produce right now at farmers markets. Puneeta Chhitwal-Varma joins us now with tips on how to preserve all of that goodness without letting it wilt or go bad in your fridge. Good morning.
Good morning, Annette. And that's what often happens, right? We buy all this beautiful produce and it's in the back of the fridge 2 days later and it's all wilted away and it's gone bad and no longer usable. So I've got tips here that we can use, especially for the fragile herbs and greens. And let's get right into it.
Because you say to treat those greens like flowers.
Yes, I do. So treat them like flowers. They make the best bouquet. So I've got an example here. I've got coriander and basil. And the best way really is to give them a good rinse so that they're usable. If you rinse most of the produce that comes in from the farmer's market, you can use it easily and the kids can pick it up from the fridge. So in this case, I rinse them really quickly and then dry them. That's important. And because they are like flowers, they have a lot of moisture in them. And so you want them to stand in this. I've got a few examples here, of course, like flowers. I've got them in a little vase. And then cover them with a plastic bag, because the point of all of this is to use what we have and to reduce what we throw away. And somehow we end up with a ton of plastic bags. And so cover the vase, if you will, with the plastic bag so there's enough air circulation, because herbs do need that. And then stick them in the fridge. I often have like a lineup of these little cups in the fridge out of the way of the kids. And then what I discovered the other day at the local Sobeys is a new program that they've launched that they call In Farm, where they actually grow these herbs on site in refrigerators in the stores, right? And then they sell them to, well, people like me, and they come with the roots intact. And that's just so wonderful, right? They last longer in the fridge. They are reducing food waste from the grocery. And then when it comes to my kitchen and my home, I can stick these in the fridge and they will last longer. And then at the end, you can even plant them in a little pot when the weather changes.
What a great idea. So then you've got them forever. Now, do herbs like that, do they have to go in the fridge, or are there some that it's best to leave out on the counter?
So if you have a cool dark corner in your kitchen, I have a lot of dark corners in my kitchen, and so it totally works. But if you have the air conditioning on, the air can really dry out. And so stick them in the fridge and then cover them up, because you don't want them to dry out too much, because then they start wilting.
Okay, good idea. Okay, now something to do with all those tomatoes that people either have in their gardens right now, or their neighbors are bringing them over, or you're getting them at the fridge or at the grocery store or markets in the huge bushel baskets.
Yes, so I'm holding one of the baskets that I got the other day from the store, and I have about 8 of these. And so I leave them on the counter. The taste is best preserved on the counter, right? Mm-hmm. But after a couple of days, they start getting overripe, and that's the time to put them in the fridge and then use them for cooking or for making, roast them up a little bit in a pan, and then you have enough of roasted chicken and roasted tomato sauce that you can toss up in the middle of winter, right?
Okay, and you've got some great ideas too for preserving them long into January and February.
Yes, so I cook them down. I often blanch the tomatoes in a pan of hot water. You can see that there. So it takes only about a good, maybe 2 minutes. And then the skin starts rippling off, and you can easily pull that off, put it in the blender and freeze it. Sometimes I add in different herbs to this, and this makes a great makhani sauce. You can make buttered chicken in December from fresh tomatoes that you bought in August.
Right, and they just smell so wonderful when you do that. Now, do you can yours, or do you put them in freezer bags?
So I put them in freezer bags. I actually have a lineup of mason jars that I put in the freezer. I find they last really long. With canning, there is a couple of steps you have to follow, because you need to make sure that it's at the right temperature when you pour it in and it's all sanitized. And so I make my life a little bit easy, and I just freeze them.
Right, right. Getting back to the blanching, how do you know that the tomatoes are ready to be pulled out when you're doing that? Do they change color a little bit, or do they float, or how do you know?
So they do float a little bit. So I usually overfill my pot. Like you saw in that picture, there's often maybe 3/4 water, and then the rest of it is tomatoes. And then In about 2 minutes, you will see that the skin has started to stretch and pull away. And that's when you know it's kind of done. I mean, a lot of people cook it down really for
Okay.
another few minutes, but you don't need to. If you're doing something else in the kitchen, do that. And then you can also use those skins for a stock, which is what I
Okay.
often do with the
Okay.
greens as well. The greens that have a lot of veins,
Alrighty, we've
totally
got to
make
go, but
stock.
we'll get info up on your blog, Maple and Marigold, up at chch.com. Lovely to see you again,
For
Puneeta.
sure, for sure. See you later, Annette.